think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. You can tell we are not in WMTV's studio in Grosse Pointe Farms. We're right down here on the Lower East Side of Detroit at the old Packard plant. And we have with us today none other than our favorite historian, Joe Babiasz. Joe, welcome again to Cars in Context, my friend.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
What a great day.
Doesn't get any better than this.
It doesn't get any better, Joe, because it says revitalizing the Packard plant for the betterment of Detroit. We have just had some great news happen. This building's had news all the time.
Not for good reasons.
Yeah, that's right.
But now we have some good reasons.
Fires, you know, owners can't be found, the deals falling through. But Joe, finally there's some great news on the Packard plant. And you, Cars in Context viewers, you know all about this. Because you remember when Joe first came and talked to us about the Packard plant back on one of our early shows when we were still doing In a Heartbeat. You can find that on the Cars in Context TV YouTube channel. It's our #1 watch show. So we thought, what better time would it be than for you to come now to revisit the plant and see us back in one of our really favorite places. And so Joe, let's go back a little bit if we can and talk about this fantastic building, what it meant to Detroit. And we're here on Mount Elliott, just off I-94. Right, this is Grand Boulevard. Mount Elliott's down like less than a quarter of a mile away. This is the Lower East Side, but when Packard first started, this wasn't even Detroit.
No, this was technically outside the city of Detroit. And the Packard brothers, who originally started in Warren, Ohio, the Ohio Motor Car Company, were enticed by Henry Joy and $275,000 to move to Detroit in the early 20th century. So in 1903, Packard brothers packed up from Warren, Ohio, and they came to what was the outside skirts of Detroit. Bought 66 acres of property for about $20,000 and started to build their car company. This is in 1903.
Right.
They built 10 buildings with traditional stick built.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, 9 buildings with traditional stick built. And then the 10th building, they called on a guy named Albert Kahn, one of the world's renowned architects, who happened at the time to come up with a reinforced concrete column that allowed taller buildings and wider spacings.
We will show that exact kind of construction method to you. It's really kind of changed the way skyscrapers are built. Yep. Many buildings here in Detroit have this same construction technique. When
and it was first used at the Packard plant.
Right here in Detroit.
Right.
And so Joe, when we're standing here, but you know, we look at some of the things that he started over here on these first few buildings. As he moved across the boulevard, he had the bridge to go across to the factory. This place was hopping. This place was a rocking and rolling factory.
It was hopping, but you know, by about 1906, there were 6,000 people working here. The plant grew from 100,000 square feet to 1.5 million square feet, and ultimately, it grew to be 3.5 million square feet.
Right.
So I mean, it just grew and grew, and more people got employed. At its peak during the war efforts, about 36,000 people worked at this one plant, and literally as the plant grew, the town grew around it.
Right.
And that's really what happened, and people would walk to work. Working at Packard. Interestingly, the workers couldn't afford the cars that they produced.
They're working on these cars.
Because the Packard, when it first came out, the first Packard was about $3,000, about 3 times that of a Cadillac.
High-end car.
And in 1904, interestingly, the Model L was the first car produced, first Packard produced here. It had a 22 horsepower engine, and it went 40 miles an hour, which you think is not very fast, but considering the roads in 1904, was probably like going 150 miles an hour today. So, wonderful car.
So this Packard plant, not only has Packard been a great part of Detroit's automotive history, and really a great part of our heritage, but this building, this really sparked the development of the Lower East Side. You know, this is what a cornerstone of the auto industry in the city.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it grew until the 50s, mid-50s, when of course Packard, like a lot of independents, slowly withered away and eventually ultimately went out of business.
So we're going to take you on a little walk through kind of the challenges that are being faced from the new owner. We're going to get to meet the new owner. Fernando Palazuelo is just a phenomenal guy. He's from Peru. He's the investor that paid
$405,000.
$405,000 for this property. Tried to pay all the back taxes. It actually went through. Remember that whole...
Oh, it was a mess.
What a mess. That whole thing.
Several different people tried to buy it. Somebody had bought it.
Phony bids.
Multi-million-dollars. He ultimately bought it. Had to pay, I think, $90,000 in back taxes, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But he owns it. It's done, and his vision is
revitalize
incredible.
it.
Yes.
He's gonna try
turn it around.
And they still have the Kahn the Kahn name on the building.
They are working with Albert Kahn, the company or the architects today, to make sure that they kind of keep the history and the essence of this place.
How exciting is that? So now we've got some really great news. All right, let's take a little break here and let's go take a look at some of the challenges being faced for somebody who would buy Detroit's great Packard plant. Let's go, Joe. Okay, now we're inside, and the administration building. We're just starting this adventure, and here we're blessed to have Fernando Palazuelo. Fernando is the investor that bought the Packard plant. He's the guy with the vision. Fernando's agreed to talk to us for a couple of moments and give us some of his ideas of the possibilities that here exist on this, kind of sacred ground, right, Joe? Would you talk about?
It is sacred ground, sir. Absolutely.
If you're a Detroiter, like we all are, and if you've had just a hope that someday someone like Fernando would come in here and do this, this is the exciting time. Fernando, thank you for joining us today.
John, thank you for coming.
We're excited.
It is always at the first steps of the project.
Yeah, very early.
To receive friends and people interested in the future of the plant. So thank you for coming.
Could you take us back, Fernando, and tell us how you first got the Packard plant on your radar? I mean, we know what you've done in Spain, all over the world. You've looked at these properties, but when was this property first on your radar, when you first started to think about possibilities here?
Well, I mean, my profession is to buy buildings into historical towns that went into recession. Yeah. So Detroit was the perfect, a very long history, and at the end of a recession period. No? So when I realized that the town was on bankruptcy, it was July 18, I got it on the news next day, July 19th of last year. So I immediately began to read about Detroit. Okay. No? So the Packard Plant was on the screen, always, no? On YouTube, because there were several guys here already around trying to buy it. No? Yeah. So one month later, I bought an airline ticket and I arrived here. No? And I went to the Wayne County to tell them that, well, I have been recovering towns in Madrid, in Europe, so Madrid, Barcelona, Mallorca, also something in Nepal, in Bhaktapur. And recently, in the last 7 years, I was able to convert historical Lima. No? Yeah. So we began to talk, both Raymond Wojtowicz and David Szymanski, and well, we got friends, no? Even it was even before the auction, no? So during the auction, it was a little bit a crazy auction, and many people were offering even many $1 million, no? Yeah. 6 point whatever, no? Yeah. And promising to change the world here by creating. Can you? So at the end, and somebody from Chicago also, and at the end, it's a big piece of shit, no? Of ruins, no? And if you have no experience, and you did not go through a due diligence, structural due diligence of the buildings, and also from a juristic point of view, a low due diligence, which we were able to do before going into the bid. No? So I already knew that there were risks, no? And the control risks. No? I already knew that the former owner, or still the owner last year, could avoid many things and complicate us life. But it's my profession. I've done over 120 buildings in my life, so this is a big one, no? 47 buildings together, so more or less one half of. So I took the risk to when they called me, to give them the $405,000. No? It was more or less like going to the casino.
It's rolling a dice.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
is a gamble. Fernando's got a project on his hands that we know is going to be a challenge. But tell us a little bit about what you might see. I know as manufacturing's really changed, and when this building was built, 1903, Joe?
1903. 1904 was the first car model
Exactly.
was built.
Okay, so now, you know, I remember the Dearborn Assembly Plant built right around the same time. Solidly constructed, but today's assembly facilities, one floor, many acres, it's a different kind of a place. What do you see here, Fernando? What type of business could really actually work, and it wouldn't be automotive?
Well, I mean, I saw, first of all, historic track record, which is always a multiplier of what you do in the future. No? I mean, analyze places like Paris, Rome, Venedig, Florence. I mean, boom. So history, to protect history is always very important. Then I saw location. Other people thought that this was out of a good, far away from a good location. But I mean, I thought, it's very close to the railway facility.
Railway, yeah.
Freeways, I mean, not far away from the water, airport, city airport, and finally, well, in a place where, East Grand Boulevard is still a big avenue, no? So location, no? Very close to the big GM factory here and Chrysler, so location, no? Then, well, timing. Timing, which is always in the real estate very important, no? If you get the wrong timing, you are finished. In real estate, it's always up and down, no? So timing. And then, finally, well, a price, no? In Spain, we were used to buy buildings and pay $7,000, $6,000, $5,000 each constructed square meter.
Okay.
No? In Peru, we were very happy by paying $100. Now the price of each square meter, not square feet, in Peru, our buildings grow in 7-6 years, 20 times higher. No? So, but when I came here, and I took my, I was not, I didn't need my calculator, but I realized it was $1 a square meter, 1 cent a square feet.
I see.
It's really the cheapest place all over the world. Yeah. Even if you take in mind, India and all those places, many people think they are quite, they are very expensive. Vietnam, if you compare it to Detroit, Vietnam, Cambodia, so China, for example, no, so this is the cheapest place all over the world. I don't know if Iraq now, for example, could be cheaper. I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's not a rebound, but you're right. There was a skyscraper that was sold to a Chinese company several years ago for $8.5 million.
Exactly.
I got the name of it, but I've been to the top. It's a beautiful, beautiful building.
Exactly.
You couldn't build that for 20, 30 times that amount of money in downtown.
Exactly.
And it's a magnificent building in wonderful repair. Beautiful.
Exactly. So, following our friend Warren Buffett, which is the star of the stars, solid, undervalued assets.
Okay. Now, that brings us...
And that's the reason of being here, no?
But
what to do?
Do you see the fact that it was this glorious long-lost car company in Detroit that a would-be tenant would say, hey, that's a cool place to be. That would be, if you were able to make something of this, that's a draw, that's something they want to be part of, rather than just be a nondescript building that was, a nothing place? Do you see that as a reason to be attracted to this property?
Yes, as far as I know, Packard Corporation was the first one to move into Detroit. No, the rest of the Ford and GM follow Packard.
Ford did. Now Oldsmobile was here first. Oldsmobile had a factory on Jefferson in 1900 to 03, and then it burned down. At that point, they moved to Lansing. Right. But yeah, Packard was one of the
The Detroit.
Exactly.
The cornerstone.
The cornerstone. So,
and the old factory wasn't anything like this.
No,
exactly.
Albert Kahn came by and put up his reinforcement.
First building in history of architectural design to be constructed with reinforced concrete all over the world.
Exactly.
No?
Right.
That's right.
So I mean, this is very important factor. No? So yes, I mean, we have been approached by several automotive subcontractors, no? And they are thinking how to install themselves here because they are very close to the big factories, no? Sure. On the other hand, I mean, as you indicated, in 100 years, the whole world of automotive factories have changed. So, I mean, I would like to have them here, but they are a little bit destructive, no? Because they would like to be here, but they told me, okay, you have to throw a couple of buildings down, no? And then we will be. This is not our. I mean, we want to protect and re-up all of them.
Right.
So as far as one of the auto suppliers comes and more or less adapt himself to the actual structure with little minor modification, we will have him as a tenant. Oh. But if he obliges us to throw buildings down and that, then, well, then...
That wasn't your intent.
No. That's not my intent. I mean, Packard cars in the past, artists during 50 years, I mean, we have been yesterday trying to bring the Bansky piece to the top, and also new technologies, no? To remember a little bit the Packard 100 years ago, new technologies and developments of the automotive industry. No? On the other hand, we would like to have also residential and commercial and a school. We are thinking how to bring a school, no? So that our tenants could leave the kids close to their houses and then walking distance, get a job if they are tough. And also recreational, no? I mean, we are thinking how to bring here a go-kart track. A go-kart track, because it has to do with the Packards, no? And well, I mean, have here rental for the go-karts, and also competitions. I mean, a very nice high-tech go-kart track, no? I mean, that I think many Detroiters would like to, I mean, on the weekend, feel like in a real track, no? But well, paying $20 for 30 minutes. So, I mean, recreational, no?
A lot of ideas.
Am I correct in saying that you're planning on having a Packard museum here?
Of course, yes. I am already in touch with the Motor City Packard Club and with the national to bring their cars here to store them, have books, a little cafe, a shop, and an activity around the history of I mean, we just received a present. This is an artist that has painted an old Packard now. So I mean, people are sending us things, and we are in touch with the historical museum, no?
And the AC.
Yes. So I mean, to do some things together, no? I mean, things together. That's the target, no?
Now, when this plant was built, Detroit's Lower East Side was really uninhabited.
This technically wasn't Detroit.
This was outside.
When they bought the 66 acres, I think it was 66 originally, for about 20 grand. This was technically outside the city limits.
Interesting.
That grew into becoming the city of Detroit.
But the factory being here, the neighborhood grew up around it. When it sparked an entire development for miles around. The workers walked to work. They lived in these neighborhoods, and you know, for years and years, while the decline. Do you think that having these attractions here can, the chicken and the egg theory, does the Packard plant have to be reborn first and then the neighborhood, or do you have to go to the city and say, I need your help revitalizing the neighborhood to make the Packard plant work?
Well, both. I mean, we need the help of the city, of the state, and the federal government. I mean, they have to be all partners. I mean, we are now having meetings now. I mean, for all these tax credits and historical credit and funds. I mean, it's a $400 million project. I mean, sorry, I don't have the 400 million.
I wish I could loan
I mean,
to you.
yes, I would like, but okay. So I mean, that's the real situation. So we have to create here a big deal with a lot of partners, no? And I'm sure that once it begins to work, I mean, Grand Boulevard is a very nice area. This morning I was telling Kari, I mean, are you sure I could not live here? No, Fernando, this is very dangerous. Well, but it does not look dangerous. It has been great in the past. The houses are extraordinary.
This used to be
why is still this very dangerous, no?
Yeah, it's a very difficult neighborhood. Even the prison moved out, so it was very tough here.
So I mean,
Grand Boulevard at one time was the jewel of Detroit. You drove down there to the Belle Isle. To the
exactly. No?
And it will, but you see throughout Detroit is beginning its renaissance. I firmly believe that. It's beginning its renaissance. We finally have, I think, a city government that's working with the people, something we haven't had for many years before. And the new mayor, I think, is doing a stellar
extraordinary job. I agree.
And then you see all of the downtown activities and
the buildings.
Great people like yourself who are willing to spend your money because of your vision. You see what once was and you know that it can be again. It needs a little push, it needs a lot of money, it needs a lot of work, but you know, I am a firm believer in Detroit. I know this renaissance is just at the beginning. It's going to be great things, and thanks to you. Personally, I thank you for believing in this city. And it will be great because of people like yourself.
And the Midtown development as well.
Oh, right.
Midtown and downtown, and now the big question is what to do with the neighborhoods.
Right.
This is what to do with the neighborhood. This will affect the entire east side and will have, you know, effect all the way through the city.
Yeah.
So that question of what to do with the neighborhood is answered with a development like this.
Yeah, you even see in Corktown, all the developments going on in the last week or two in Corktown. You know, people,
it takes that first
out-of-state people dying to get in and get some buildings that can't get. There aren't enough buildings there, and you're right. It'll grow those neighborhoods, and people will start living. And there's areas you can't rent a place in Midtown, you know. So it's so good to see that we're back on track.
So you do see residential as part of the rebirth of this property?
Yes, I mean
in this complex somehow.
One of those 47 buildings, of course, no. I mean, I think it's a nice place to live, no? If you have an art gallery, for example, no? This 5-5 gallery that owns the Bansky, no? We would like to bring them here. If you have an art gallery, if you have a coffee shop, if you have new technologies, I mean, if you have security with our drones, laser, and pop, and I mean, jobs and a nice landscape, which we are going to start immediately. No, new trees, new flowers, like Sue Mosse and Midtown Detroit Inc. has done in Midtown, no, with the Inn on Ferry Street and all this. I mean, it's an incredible area. Yeah. I mean, super sophisticated, like in the best place of Europe or whatever, no. They have done it. It took them 27 years. Okay, but I mean, 27 years is a little bit too much for me because I don't know if I want to see it. But we have to do it in 7 or 10 years, no? It's possible, no? I always, this is a French original town, as you know, no?
It is.
I always like to use an expression of a very famous French guy, French general. Impossible, c'est pas français. Impossible is not French.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. That's Fernando Palazuelo. This is the man we hope we'll see a lot of in these up and coming years. We hope that you have been watching, will be watching as car people, as Detroiters, looking forward to all the vision that you bring. Thank you very much for spending time with us. And thank you again. We're hoping for the best here, and we'll be following this closely on Cars in Context. Now we're going to go take a look at some of the challenges that Fernando faces to turn this once grand place into that vision that we just talked about. We'll come back right after this.
Wow, can you imagine this, Joe? Fernando Palazuelo's got his work cut out for him. This old building, even though at the time a hubbub of activity has been vacant and dormant and really been ravaged by the scrappers. And on top of that, Joe, when you build cars, there's all kinds of things they did in the 1920s and 30s and 40s with the toxins that are involved that we don't really know what he's looking at here. What do you think he's facing here?
facing a huge task as the EPA, I guess, or someone will come in and check what's not just here, what's below the ground is probably more important than what's here, because you can see what you're working with here.
Yeah.
We don't know what's 30 feet down. You're right. It could, oils and gas and paints, lacquers and all kinds of things. And so
for years and years of seepage.
For many years. And that was before, there were controls on it. So a lot of the companies just wound up tipping things over and making things go away and out of sight, out of mind. But I think that will be his biggest issue right now. Well, you can either knock it down or fix it.
Well, he said, he's had people look at this and see structurally, he thinks a lot of this building and a lot of this complex can be saved, even though for the last 10 years, this place is probably the #1 looted building as far as scrappers with steel,
absolutely.
iron, anything of any value has long been carted out of this building.
A lot of it's been.
So what do you think the first step is? I mean, do you scrape it down to its skeleton?
Well, I think it's like eating an elephant one step at a time. As you take one bite at a time. You take one area, assess it, and and just concentrate on the area. Get the best of the best people involved in the construction business to say, okay, here's what we can do.
Right.
Have some different options. You look at some of the cement, some of it's falling out, but apparently a lot of it doesn't look good, but apparently a lot of it is good.
It looks terrible to me. I can't imagine.
So he has a vision. Let's just hope things will work his way and in a number of years, you and I will come back and we'll do the success story that
I hope that's right.
That no one thought could be a success story.
Well, let's go see if in Albert Kahn the basis of that skeleton, the way these buildings are built. Let's see if we can find one of those pillars, because really, Joe, if that building hadn't been done like that, if it were just like a metal skeleton and hung off like the typical
or the typical
Home
wood
Depot,
columns,
right. Then this
we would
building,
never have this.
This building wouldn't be here today.
We would never have this. If we didn't have the Kahn design.
Right.
And actually, it was Julius, his brother, Albert's brother, who actually came up with it, I'm told.
Okay.
But they perfected it together.
Oh, really?
And this was the test bed, for lack of a better term. And of course, almost every auto company after that used the same design, when Ford built Highland Park and so on, and even River Rouge.
The Rouge plant.
Cadillac, every old plant that you go into had the same fluted pillars.
Well, for that strength.
For that strength. And you can go up multiple. And the other important thing was, unlike the wooden poles, which had to be spaced every 10 or 12 feet, they could space these out a lot more and offer a lot more advantage inside the building.
Right. And then the bottom line was that because of the strength needed for these buildings, it had to be something that they could build upon, because back in the day, different functions were on different levels of the plant. I mean, the assembly line was just one part of it, right?
The assembly line, and usually that was the last part. A lot of the sub-assemblies were built on the upper levels and then brought down either via conveyors or so on to the lowest level where the final assembly was built, and then the car pops out.
So this idea of, okay, everyone's working, but you don't all need to be on the assembly line floor.
No, only a portion of them were on the assembly line. There were so many sub-assemblies. You'll notice up there, John, on that top floor is the remnants of a fluted column.
There we go.
And it's just sticking out in midair.
Now, Joe, that means that the steel that once held the girders in place for that building had been cut out or jackhammered out and carted off. But folks, that's what we're talking about up there. It looks like a tulip. It looks like a flower.
And that is actually on what was probably the third floor. There are several columns. They're coming in pretty clear now.
Yeah.
You see 3 of those columns. So you see how widely they're spread.
Yeah.
Because of their strength, they don't need to be every 10 or 12 feet.
So that gave them greater floor space, right?
More floor space, and can go up much, much higher.
Right. Now see, these buildings here, Joe, the warehousing areas, you can tell that the scrappers had taken the steel structure, gone. And so when they took the steel, the bricks just fell in, and they walked off with all that iron, all that scrap iron. So really, these parts of these buildings, he has really very little to work with that. He just has garbage to pull out.
I'm sure he's going to prioritize suggesting, well, this has to go. There's nothing left to it, but this might, you look at that third floor on this building over to the right, John, that structurally, that building is probably perfect. When you think about it, it's probably
amazing
perfect.
Yeah.
And it probably will last another 100, 200 years.
Oh,
so, easy for me to say, throw some windows in there and some heat, and then you have a real building. So, the fluted column, the Kahn design, really works.
It's really a testament to his vision of how to build a building that'll last and take the abuse of something like an automotive
And
factory.
it's, it's not just the scrappers though, it's the winters. There's, 100 and some odd winters in Michigan where all this has been open to the element. Freeze, thaw, everything, and yet it still stands. It's like that ship that won't give up. It's like a boat that's not going to sink. It's still here. It's a little weathered, but it's still here.
But Joe, don't they say that the weather is what causes the majority of the problems in these buildings? The degradation of the brick, how it sticks to the building, all the mortar joints.
Sure.
When water gets
and
into
any crack in the cement, when the water freezes, pop.
Elevator shaft. Remember in the Detroit news we saw kids were playing hockey in here and they found some person was actually died and fell down an elevator shaft and was frozen into the ice, and they called it frozen in time. So here, Joe, here's the column we want to talk about right here. We can see it very clearly right here. You can see.
Yeah, they actually here, right on the right side, John.
Yeah, here's right here, folks.
There's an open one on the right.
All right, folks, this is the construction method that you can see. It's fluted at the top. That is a steel beam that's encased in this hardened concrete. And as you can see, Joe, they go all the way down. They look like little tulips, but look at how they've fluted the top, the base of that to hold up.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just for looks or strength, but it is. Well, when you look at the size of that, you can understand why these buildings are still here. They're still standing 110 years or so later.
You can count these pillars. You can realize that the strength that these all offer with Albert Kahn's design. This obviously was a shipping and receiving, this is a loading dock of some sort. But being able to spread the load in this incredible concrete heavy building and spread that wide enough where you can get vehicles through, like let's say, forklifts or however they transported all the different car parts. This is the keystone of one of Albert Kahn's buildings. This is why the Packard plant is still standing today. Although I must tell you, Joe, I am dumbfounded at the amount of work that it would take just to get started. Where would you start picking up everything? I mean, and in what building do you start? This is 40 acres?
Today it's 40 acres.
40
yes.
acres.
Yes,
40 acres.
40 acres
and $400,000.
$405,000. And it's a bargain, as he said in the interview. It's a bargain when you look at the price per square foot. But on the other hand, just to clean this up, ensure that it's safe, and then rebuild it as a viable building will be hundreds of millions of dollars.
And just think the asset he could have had if the city of Detroit would be able to get been secured this property years ago, and it wouldn't have been to this what they call ruin porn now. The Packard plant is like the poster child, if you will, for decay and urban decay and the degradation of the American manufacturing base. This is the poster child for it. But it's good to see some of the vision. Let's take a look down here, Joe. This place is just fascinating. You can see that for years and years, I mean, first they started with whatever metal they could take, and bricks have been gone, and then this place has been, I mean, we finally get back out into the city. This was probably a city block at one time. They're probably regular. This was a street at one time. This is an actual street.
This might have been, yes, this might have been a street, yeah.
So you can see that it connected the street. You pull in here, you went into the shipping receiving docks, you pulled back out. You're close to rail line. You're right off the freeway here.
City airport down the road.
Even the freeway wasn't built until 1957, but I mean, at least
you're close to the major.
Gratiot Avenue, a huge link that takes you right to the airport. These all things were very, very important for a car company. And whether or not their administration building was down on the boulevard, don't forget the boulevard, Joe. We had lumber barons, we had business owners, those beautiful grand homes. Right. Beautiful multi-story.
They built their homes right on the boulevard.
The grand boulevard.
And you know that I believe that it started in this end and worked its way north.
You started building here and then going that way.
1,000 people, then 6,000 people, and ultimately 36,000 people work in one factory. It's inconceivable today at a typical auto factory. You will have over 2 shifts. Total employment, hourly and salary, you'll have maybe 2,500 to 3,000. They had over 10 times more in one place, and it's just incredible that they worked in unison. I don't know where they parked, I don't know what kind of parking lot they had.
Well, they certainly didn't have this beautiful tree
Sticking
growing
out of the roof.
yeah, growing out of the top.
Well, you hear
floor.
the rooftop gardens.
Yeah, well, I've heard of
maybe
rooftop
it's Fernando's rooftop garden. It could be the start of it. So 36,000 people, during the war. And again, this is when we talk about Packard, it's not just automobiles, but during World War I, they built Liberty Motors here.
That's right.
During World War II, they built the Merlin V1650, which was the engine that ran the P-51, fastest plane in World War II.
Yeah.
And they also built in the building farthest north the I think it was a V12 engine for PT boats.
Joe, this place, I mean, when you think of all the people, like you said, there are families that lived here on the Lower East Side, say between the Boulevard and Gratiot or Mount Elliott, and even if you go to Van Dyke, I went to high school several blocks from here. It was an old high school called St. Anthony's, and in Detroit, it was on the Boulevard in Gratiot, at Sheridan and Gratiot. And my dad and mom went there. My dad played football for St. Anthony's. He had a possibility of a scholarship to go to U of M to play football because the Detroit Lions were interested in him he was a right guard, and he wound up going to the war. When we went to school, we wanted to go to St. Anthony's, come to downtown Detroit, experience this school, and in the 70s it turned into East Catholic. And of course, you know what happened to it. The scrappers got into the building when East Catholic went out of business, destroyed the building. The old high school, which was born right around this time, where the Packard plant was eventually knocked down and lost. But so we don't want, a lot of people say, I'd like to see some gleaming buildings in Detroit. But there's something to be said for these incredible old buildings. And
Absolutely. And as this place grows again, as it did earlier, the neighborhood grew around the Packard plant. It became a vibrant neighborhood.
Well,
it
Joe,
also left when the Packard plant closed.
Let's hope that Fernando
hopefully get it back.
Has that vision. I hope he's able to do that. We hope you enjoyed our little trip here to the Detroit Packard plant here on the Boulevard and Mount Elliott. We're going to be following this story for you, and I hope that you now have a little better appreciation of the great automotive history in the city of Detroit. With Joe Babiasz, thank you for joining me, Joe.
John, it's been great.
And I'm your host, John Clor. Remember that knowledge is power. Until next time, thanks for watching.